You felt it for years, that strange sensitivity you can't explain. You walk into a room and the air thickens. No one else reacts, but you know something is wrong. The tension presses against your skin like static electricity before a storm. Carl Jung once said, "To see clearly is to see too much." He wasn't warning philosophers. He was warning you. In 1913, Jung met a woman he called Anna, a governess whose life had collapsed without visible reason. She wasn't broken. She was overloaded. She could see through people the way X-rays see through bone. While others exchanged polite smiles at dinner, Anna noticed the husband's resentment and how he held his fork. She heard the wife's despair in the pauses between her sentences. 6 months before the affair began, Anna already knew the marriage was dying. And when it ended exactly as she'd foreseen, she didn't feel vindicated. She felt cursed. That's how dangerous perception begins. You start noticing the patterns behind human behavior, the tiny fractures under perfect surfaces. At first, it feels like intuition. Then it becomes a burden. You can't turn it off. Every glance, every silence, every gesture carries meaning you never asked to receive. Jung recognized it instantly because he'd lived it himself. During his own psychological crisis, he began seeing what he called the language of the unconscious everywhere. In dreams, in faces, in architecture, in the flicker of candlelight. It was illuminating. It was unbearable. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Jung sensed. Some people process the world with deeper filters. Their brains light up in areas linked to empathy, prediction, and pattern recognition. They don't just observe, they absorb. They don't just hear, they interpret. 20% of humans have this trait. Most never learn how to survive it. Because when you see too much, the world stops being comfortable. You start feeling every hidden tension, every lie in a smile, every unspoken word between lovers. You sense storms long before the clouds gather, and you begin to wonder if the problem is the world or you. Jung called this state the perception crisis, a mind flooded with truths that have nowhere to go. Without integration, perception becomes torture. Your empathy turns into anxiety. Your insight turns into isolation. You see everything, except where to look for peace. But here's the paradox. The same ability that breaks you can rebuild you. The same sensitivity that drowns you can make you extraordinary, if you learn the laws that govern it. Jung found 7 specific patterns that define this dangerous perception. The signs that you're not imagining things, that your awareness runs deeper than most. And he discovered 4 precise techniques to transform it from chaos into clarity. Tonight, we'll open that door. Step by step, you'll learn why you sense what others ignore, how to stop drowning in it, and how to turn it into the sharpest instrument of understanding a human being can have. Because seeing too much is only dangerous when you see unconsciously. Once you bring it to light, it becomes power. There are 7 ways the unconscious reveals itself through perception. 7 signs that your mind has crossed the thin border between intuition and insight. And if you recognize them, you will also recognize the cost of carrying such vision. The first is effective perception, the ability to sense the emotional truth behind performance. You walk into a meeting, and within seconds, you know who's angry, who's lying, who's on the verge of tears. Everyone smiles, but you see the storm behind the smiles. You hear what people mean when they say, "I'm fine." You sense relationship dynamics the way a musician senses key changes instinctively, instantly in your bones. Friedrich Nietzsche had this gift. He could read a person's psychological state from a single conversation. He wrote about a colleague. He speaks of his happiness, but in his laughter, I see the terror of a man who has lost meaning. Nietzsche was right. The man collapsed into despair months later. But Nietzsche himself paid the price. Seeing too much stripped him of ease. Social life became unbearable because he was always looking beneath the mask. The second sign is synthetic perception, the ability to see where patterns are heading before others recognize that a pattern exists. You sense the end of a relationship before the first argument. You know when a company will fail before the first layoff. You can predict a person's future choices as if you've already read the next chapter of their life. Nikola Tesla lived here permanently. He saw tomorrow's technology in the present moment's geometry. Wireless power, renewable energy. He saw them decades before anyone else could imagine them. And that vision isolated him. He lived in the future while everyone else was content with today. Modern research calls this existential isolation. Seeing too far ahead makes the present feel unbearably small. The third sign is authenticity detection. You can tell within minutes when someone is performing instead of being real. You feel physically uncomfortable around people who are on. You notice the mismatch between their eyes and their tone, their kindness and their intent. Most people don't detect micro-expressions that flash for a 25th of a second. You do. You read people in fragments faster than they can construct their lies. Integrated, this is a gift for discernment. Unintegrated, it breeds cynicism. You begin to doubt everyone's sincerity and then your own. The fourth sign is environmental absorption. You walk into a room and feel its residue. You can tell a fight happened there days ago. You sense anxiety soaked into walls, sadness floating in air. It's not magic. Your unconscious brain processes thousands of subtle cues. Objects displaced, tones of color, air density. You perceive atmosphere like others perceive temperature. It's both fascinating and exhausting. The fifth sign is omission detection, hearing what's not said. You pick up on the missing words, the silence between sentences, the avoidance of certain topics. A friend describes their partner, but never mentions feeling loved, and your stomach tightens. You don't know why. You just know something essential has been left out. You hear the gaps as clearly as others hear the words. The sixth sign is probabilistic thinking. You see not one future, but many. Someone tells you their plan, and your mind automatically simulates 3 ways it can fail and 2 ways it might succeed. You live surrounded by branching paths. Your intuition is not mystical, it's statistical. Jung called this perspective thinking, the psyche's ability to project possibilities before they unfold. Integrated, it makes you a visionary strategist. Unintegrated, it traps you in constant overthinking, a chess game against time. The seventh and final sign is somatic empathy. You don't just notice others' emotions, you feel them. Anxiety tightens your chest that isn't yours. Grief weighs down your body that doesn't belong to you. Mirror neurons in your brain fire, as if you were living another person's pain. It's the deepest form of perception and the most dangerous. Because when you absorb too much, your nervous system forgets where you end and the world begins. Most people carry 3 or 4 of these signs. If you carry 5 or more, you're living in what Jung called the saturation state. Your perception has become too powerful for the ego to contain. And unless you learn integration, your gift turns into noise. You start to lose sleep. Your thoughts blur with others' emotions. You sense things you can't explain, and you begin to wonder if you're going mad. You're not. You're perceiving. But without boundaries, perception becomes possession. To survive it, Jung developed a method, a process that allowed people like Anna to transform perception from torment into mastery. It begins not with others, but with you, with how you hold the lens. Because the instrument you use to read the world is the same instrument that can destroy you. Perception without filters is like a river overflowing its banks. Anna felt it first as validation, finally, a reason for her differences. She wasn't broken. She saw what others couldn't. But validation turned into inflation. I see what others can't, she told herself. Superiority built walls around her. Conversations became unbearable. She withdrew. Isolation crept in, and then came overwhelm. Her nervous system could no longer distinguish her emotions from everyone else's. Every glance, every word, every pause became data. Too much data, noise without pattern. Jung recognized the same trajectory in himself. During his own crisis, he wrote, "I stood at the edge of madness, seeing so clearly into the unconscious that I feared I would fall in and never return." This is the danger of unintegrated perception. Accuracy without control is torment. Insight without method is collapse. But Jung also discovered the cure. Integration transforms perception from curse to tool. The first step, differentiation. Your perception is something you have, not something you are. You are not your visions, your insights, or your empathic floods. Daily, Anna practiced visualization exercises. She imagined her perceptions as objects she could pick up and put down. She closed her mental channels for brief periods. I am having perceptions, she repeated. Not I am my perceptions. The second step, filtration. Without filters, every hidden emotion becomes your responsibility. Jung taught Anna to ask 3 questions for each perception. Is this actionable for me now? Does processing it serve me or deplete me? Is it my responsibility to address or someone else's to resolve? If the answer was no to all, she released it. Not denial, conscious choice. This allowed her to perceive without drowning, to care without overextending. The third step, expression. Perception trapped inside the psyche is pressure without release. Anna began private journaling, sketching patterns she saw, painting emotions she couldn't speak aloud. She shared only with Jung and one trusted friend who could hold the information without judgment. Expression became a valve. Release became survival. The fourth step, strategic application. Perception was no longer automatic. It had gears. Gear 1, baseline awareness, normal social functioning. Gear 2, engage perception, noticing patterns when relevant. Gear 3, deep analysis, full perceptual capacity for specific work. Gear 4, integration, processing, reflecting, applying. Anna learned to shift between gears consciously. She could attend a party in Gear 1, analyze a business meeting in Gear 2, explore deep perceptual insights in Gear 3, and spend the evening in Gear 4 integrating her findings. By month 6, she could see clearly without being consumed. Her heightened perception was no longer a liability. It was her superpower, carefully wielded. Jung's method shows the truth. The mind that sees too much can also learn to hold it. Integration is the difference between collapse and mastery. If you have recognized 5 or more signs of dangerous perception, this is your path. Not denial, not suppression, conscious, deliberate, and structured application of your gift. Once integrated, dangerous perception stops being a burden. It becomes strategy, insight, power. Anna experienced this transformation firsthand. After 6 months of Jung's 4-step integration, she accepted a consulting role at a struggling family business. Within weeks, she identified the invisible fractures undermining the company. Hidden conflicts unnoticed by everyone else. Employees about to quit, seen before they acted. A prized family member committing embezzlement, revealed through subtle inconsistencies in behavior. She presented her findings with evidence and care. The company investigated. Every perception was validated. Anna was promoted. Her gift, once overwhelming, was now indispensable. This is the promise of integration. Perception becomes a tool for navigating complexity. It allows you to read rooms with precision, predict patterns before they emerge, and detect authenticity beneath the surface. But mastery requires more than skill. It requires community. Jung called it the community of seers. Isolation is the trap. Those who see too much without others who perceive similarly risk inflation or doubt. They lose calibration, questioning themselves or overvaluing their insight. Anna found her people in a Jungian study group. She discovered 4 others who operated at her level of perception. They practiced reciprocal witnessing, sharing observations, calibrating insight, validating and filtering signals from noise. This community became essential. It anchored her perception, providing both feedback and containment. Her insights no longer overwhelmed her. They guided her. Through integration and community, heightened perception becomes the ultimate competitive advantage. In business, it guides negotiation, strategic planning, and risk assessment. In relationships, it reveals unspoken truths, hidden needs, and dynamics beneath appearances. In creativity and innovation, it illuminates patterns before others notice them. The gift is not the raw perception itself. It is the ability to wield it with clarity, discretion, and strategic intention. Anna's life, after integration, shows the potential. She could attend social events without exhaustion. She could observe, analyze, and act, then relax, leaving the rest behind. She could use her insight professionally and personally without losing herself in the process. Dangerous perception, once unconscious and isolating, had become her sharpest instrument. It was no longer a curse. It was mastery. Heightened perception is not a curse disguised as a gift. It is a capacity. And like any capacity, it can serve you or consume you. The untrained mind sees patterns without control. It absorbs emotions, predicts futures, feels atmospheres. Without integration, this becomes relentless. You are alone in a world that doesn't understand. You feel too much. You see too clearly. You wonder if you're losing your mind. Integration changes everything. You learn to differentiate. You learn to filter. You learn to express and release. You learn to apply strategically. And you find your community. Those who perceive like you do. Those who validate without pathologizing. Those who calibrate insight without judgment. This is the final element. Alone, even mastery is fragile. Together, perception is anchored. It is both accurate and sustainable. Anna's story is proof. She could see what others couldn't, but now she chose when to see. She could discuss her insights safely. She could act on them effectively. She could turn perception into professional success and personal freedom. She could, for the first time, simply enjoy a sunset without dissecting its emotional architecture. You're not noticing too much. You are noticing accurately. But without tools, without method, without support, that accuracy becomes chaos. Jung spent his life building those tools. Differentiation, filtration, expression, strategic application, and community. Follow them, apply them, live them. When you do, dangerous perception stops being dangerous. It becomes your greatest strength, your instrument for insight, your compass in complexity. The question is not whether you have heightened perception. It is whether you will integrate it, whether you will choose conscious observation over unconscious overwhelm, whether you will build connection over isolation. Because only when perception is conscious does it become power. Only then does seeing too much become the gift it was meant to be. Step forward. Choose integration. And for the first time, see clearly without fear.